You're listening to a very special podcast, episode 745, September 8th, 2024.
Look inside and you will find all your dreams are standing by.
Hello and welcome to a very special podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Barb.
And this is Frank.
And Sue is unfortunately not feeling well this week. So we wish her a speedy recovery and all of those things.
The fall plague will get us all eventually.
Yes. Lots of things this week because we haven't had a chance to sit down in 3 weeks. And so we're not going to be able to cover all of it. So we're just going to talk about a few things. The first one, which I think Sue would have wanted to be the one to talk about, is that Bentley has acquired Cesium. Now, it's been a very long time since we talked to Bentley, like, 19 years. It's only been a year since we talked to Cesium, but it's just kind of an interesting decision. You know, Bentley very much getting into the digital twins area, Cesium really about providing the ability to capture data very quickly and put that into 3D environments. And so it makes a lot of sense, but it was a big company buying a big company. So it should be an interesting partnership, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
The Bentley acquisition monster, no, I don't want to say monster, engine, there we go, is always impressive to me. Like if you could sit down, like, have you seen that graph that floats around, like these 12 companies own like all this food stuff, like, Fritos and Pepsi, all, just number of companies. We should really make one of those at some point for the geospatial industry. And I bet Bentley would be massive.
Yeah, between them and Hexagon Geospatial, yeah.
And they would be like the twin, gargantuan things. It's always surprising to me how much they seem to pick up. And there's got to be a strategy there. And the thing I find most impressive is sometimes you look at it and you go, oh, okay, I see where you're going with this. And sometimes you're like, what? that's not just Bentley, it's all of them. And then eventually, you start seeing the pieces come together and go, wow, you guys are really thinking way down the field.
In this case, they really talk about they acquired Cesium so that they could really up the power of their digital twin, their iTwin applications for engineers and architects. So I could really see how something like this would superpower what they were and accelerate what they've been trying to do within their space.
Also this week, I'm going to flip a couple of news items real quick so you guys know what's coming. The free version, I should say, of Terrasat/Idrizi, which is going to be called LibreGIS, is going to be launched on December 2nd. So if you are a Terrasat or Idrizi user, past or present, things are changing a little bit for you. Those of you who are not using it, but may have used it in the past, this is a tool set you might want to look at coming up on December 2nd. Those of you who are thinking about getting it anyway in the near future, they're doing a weird step down in terms of pricing. So if you buy it now, I think it's 50% off. I can't remember exact dates. And then sometime in early November, it'll go down to 25%. And then, of course, on the 2nd of December, the new version will come out and that will be free. Now, keep in mind, it's going to be a free version. It's not going to be an open source version. So it's open access, not open source.
And they're going to rename it LibreGIS, which is, it's short for it's derived from a Spanto word, which means liberated, which is
Free.
Kind of, I don't know. I think that's a little funny that, we've liberated it from cost. Well, I mean, you could always have done that. just don't cash the checks. I mean, it's not hard.
This has a lot to do, as they talk about in the press release, the joining of Clark Labs with I forget the name of the other one, the CGA, Clark Center for Geospatial Analytics. Yeah. So, I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that, Ron Eastman, who has been the person who has led Clark Labs for a very long time, the development of Idrizi and Terrasat more recently, with his retirement, things change a little bit. He's now professor emeritus. And so, it's just a change in where things are now compared to what they were. Whenever I first took remote sensing in 1990, I'll call it 8, I learned on Idrizi because that's what we were still using, was before our university had moved over to Imagine?
ERDAS, that's all I remember.
Yeah, Imagine. And so, that I'm kind of excited because I really wish it had become free this semester, because I'm teaching Earth observation this semester, which I won't teach again for another 2 semesters after that. But by then I will have prepped more materials for Adrizi.
And if you took it in 1988, it was released in 1987. So this is
98.
20th release.
Not that old. 98. But yes, it wasn't. It was only 11 years or 13 years old at that point. 11? I can't do math. Yeah, 11. So, yeah.
So I've never used Idrisi, like, ever. It's not, it's just like one of those things that exist. It's like Big K Cola, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
It's better than Big K Cola. It's just, it wasn't if you weren't in the Clark Lab sphere, it kind of lost its dominance once Imagine and Envy and others kind of began to expand more. Whereas Clark Labs was trying to do something where, yes, they were still focusing on remote sensing, but they were trying to early on connect the raster vector areas. And eventually everybody else did that as well. But I think that the people at that time were focusing more on that remote sensing stack, and they didn't really get why they were putting so much vector stuff into Adrizi, and then eventually, of course, changing the name to TerraSat. So yeah, it kind of, once you get to about 2000, the other ones really pick up. And, a lot of that's because they were commercial. Yes, Clark Labs was kind of a commercial venture for the university, but it just didn't have that marketing arm that the others had.
It kind of reminds me of NASA Whirlwind and those other things out there that, and to some extent QGIS thing. You go, oh yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, well, to me, it's interesting to see that it's one of many reimaginings that are happening. And it feels like they're all happening this past year or this year, but there had to have been years of work and then decades of thought put into what they wanted this new version to be. So I just wonder, is it actually that we're seeing so many, not rebrandings, but just reimaginings, reformulations of these geospatial technologies and approaches, or is it,
So what are the other ones that you were comparing it to?
Well, I was just thinking about the new, I guess this would be last year, ESRI, all the new stuff there, a lot of the other people that are moving to the cloud, just, different iterations. Even if we're looking at Bentley and Cesium, it just seems like there's more news of changes that are pretty big changes than I remember happening in the past few years.
Next up in the news, Sentinel 2A is being dismissed, and like everyone else has been dismissed, it has to train its replacement, which is Sentinel 2C, which successfully launched and is now in space. The Sentinel program has multiple satellites that they're running simultaneously, and that was my tongue-in-cheek way of saying that they're going to retire 2A and replace it with 2C. They're going to run in tandem for a period of time, and then 2A will be taken offline and eventually do what all satellites do and fall back to Earth at some point. Eventually they'll launch 2D as in dog, which will, I think, replace 2B. So 2B and 2C. Right now it's 2A and 2B are running in the thing, and very shortly it'll be 2B and 2C, and then presumably it'll be C and D doing the Earth observation for the Sentinel program. The Sentinel program does 10 meter to 60 meter Earth observation imagery, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, and this is the 2 series. Not, it's kind of weird. In the U.S., we tend to give every satellite mission a different name, whereas here it's all within the most of the Copernicus program is named Sentinel, but then you have the different stratigraphy of the Sentinel program. The 2s are the optical sensors. So, yeah, it's a thing. And so there's a chart over on the Sentinel page if you want to know what the different ones do. But yeah, it's always exciting to see these kind of replacements come in. They're not really changing the capability. It's still going to be the 13 band and the resolutions that A and B are providing. But, it's just a recognition that these things have a lifespan and we need to replace them occasionally.
The news article that we linked to in the notes, doesn't it say how long 2A has been up there? And I'm kind of curious if it's similarly in length as the Landsats. That it was supposed to. Okay, so it wasn't one of those like it's supposed to run 5 years and we ran at 87 years. Something stupid like that. Which is, I'm being facetious, but the Landsat programs end up running a lot longer than they're necessarily intended to. I wonder if the signal people are a little better at thinking ahead and going, well, let's go ahead and replace that sucker.
Yeah. So 2A launched in 2015. So basically it had
about 10 years.
It will have, it was design life for 7 years. It's been up there for almost 10 years. By the time it is decommissioned, it will be 10 years. And so, it's not like, well, it's still running after 20 years. We're not worried about it. Well, maybe we should.
Yeah. Yeah. So, 10-year lifestyle. That's slightly less than the average U.S. car replacement rate. A car replacement rate is about 11 years. So, and this is throwing something into space. You just go to any old dealership, replace your car. So,
and then
Landsat Science has launched a tool called Your Name in Landsat Interactive, where you can basically take their Earth observation for over 50 years and write things. And I think this is going to go down as a case study in how to do science communication, because it's just brilliant. It's something that you've seen people do in activities for fun, but they took that and they made it into an interactive tool. And, they said, be aware, you can spell anything if you're going to use this in a classroom. But I've seen this news out everywhere about this interactive tool. And it's just a good way to promote what Landsat does, what imagery is. And I'm excited to play around with it.
So kind of piggybacking on that last news item, our topic this week is the looming Earth Science Week. Every year, middle of October, we have Earth Science Week. That's the nice thing about geography. Of course, we get to take advantage of not only Geography Awareness Week, but we also get Earth Science Week. We get Earth Day that we can lay claim to in part. And so, this year we're talking about Sunday, October 13th, running through Saturday the 19th. And I don't know, what are you guys thankful for this Earth Science Week? As we go around the table.
What's funny is that I always feel bad because Earth Science Week, I really don't pay attention to that much. And that's my screw up. But literally every time, usually it's September. Hey, let's think about Earth Science Week on the podcast. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. And I should think about it. Then I don't.
Fair.
And it's unfortunate because the great thing about Earth Science Week is that if you're thinking, well, does it include? Yes, it includes that. If it's Earth in any capacity, then it is part of sort of Earth science. It's geology, it's remote sensing, it's geography, it's, environmental issues. There's, for God's sakes, there's National Fossil Day. I mean, anything you want to think about, it's sort of under this umbrella, which should be a lot more exciting for us than I think that by us, I mean geographers, then I think that we give it credit for. And maybe it's because it's, Geography Awareness Week is just a month later. Maybe that's why, or not even, that we tend to, at least I tend to downplay it a little bit.
I'm personally excited because I was talking to someone and saying there were a lot of earth science kits online as a resource, that mimic those rock collections you would get in a big box. But I never had one of those big boxes where you physically touch the rocks. And our local geologic survey GIS coordinator is dropping one off for me after I said that, because it was among that discussion of, can you simulate understanding earth sciences if somebody is only experiencing it online or virtually? Can you experience the earth without having touched it?
So wait, we're going to get a box of rocks?
We are going to get a box of rocks, and I'm excited.
This year, the theme is basically Earth Science Everywhere. So it's one of those where it's a recognition that, as Frank was saying, there's so much that is Earth science, everything from the minerals that we use for manufacturing to the air that we interact with in terms of storms and things like that. So it's, a fairly broad spectrum. We can talk about it as an astronomical set of methodologies as well. We're not going to, but you can. So it's a little bit of everything. But within that idea of Earth science is everywhere, this year they also have daily themes. And some of these days are days that were happening anyway. They just happen to overlap. But yeah, as Frank was pointing out earlier with the conversation of which day were you talking about? Oh, Fossil Day.
Fossil Day, which I love. I just love.
Yeah.
I'm not a fossil. I mean, the only fossil-y that I ever thought of as a brief, interest in Jesse actually realized it in his own life of being Indiana Jones. But
Not fossils.
I know, but that's the closest I ever got, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we have Sunday is going to be International Earth Cache Day. So very GPS heavy idea there.
Also good for all ages. We've done it with professionals and it's fun.
So go out, check out geocache. I forget if it's .com or .org, but whichever one, probably both. Check that out. And of course, there's lots of apps that you can go and download on either iOS or Android for geocaching, and go out and spend some time finding a geocache, or potentially even creating your own if you don't have any in your area.
Yep. Make sure you follow all the rules. Be careful, but it's a lot of fun.
On Monday the 14th, Minerals Day. So join them in raising awareness of and appreciation for minerals and mineralogy. And I will say that some of the coolest, and I feel a little bit bad about saying this, but some of the coolest band combinations are the ones that fluoresce or reflect heavily in for various minerals. So some of those band combinations that are geology focused and mineral focused are the ones that whenever you look at them are the coolest in pictures. It makes me a little sad, but still, they're awesome.
Yeah, that's just another area that I don't know anything about. It's just
There are some really good interactive maps of minerals around the world. So you can go and look and talk about something that is specific to your region. It's also a big area for professions that gets overlooked a lot of times, specific again to the specific region.
minerals are interesting enough. The last time I studied anything remotely geologic was 8th grade science, I think. So it's an area that I don't know much about, but I agree with Jesse that when you see maps, you go, wow, the remote sensing imagery, you go, wow, that's amazing what that, pops off and things like that. And I feel like that's one of the areas of our world that we don't reflect on much. I think we reflect on it a bit more in West Virginia because, well, we're such a history tied to one very specific mineral, coal, but I don't think about minerals much within this geography that we move and exist. You think about trees and grass and all that stuff because you see it every day, but minerals, I think it's really kind of unfortunate that, and I'm pointing my finger 100% at myself, that we collectively don't necessarily recognize when we're driving along somewhere and we see a outcrop that we're talking about minerals, that and why that's there and how that formed what it did, and the systems that ties to, like soil, which then in turn does actually tie very strongly to the trees and the grass and stuff like that we do see. That's my little soapbox for we should all learn more about minerals. So celebrate that day a little bit.
They can, but I'm also laughing to myself because I'm imagining you can give away a rock tumbler as a prize, and then parents will not be very happy with you, but their kids will be.
I feel like I should put in a sound clip of Rock Tumbler, but I am not going to save everyone from having to listen to that.
Go find one on YouTube. It's unpleasant.
But one of my colleagues, so whenever I was still at UNCP, one of the geology, because it was Department of Geology and Geography, one of my geology colleagues was a huge fan of rock tumblers. And I'm just like, so you do that? She's like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, okay. Luckily, she did it at home instead of on campus, but also a WVU alum for undergrad and from the Charleston area.
Interesting.
Rock hounds.
Yep.
Now you can get to Tuesday.
Okay. Tuesday, October 15th is Earth Observation Day. Engage students and teachers in remote sensing as an exciting and powerful educational tool.
I take umbrage with this particular thing. I am a fan of Earth observation. I like the concept of an Earth Observation Day. I believe we are now getting to there are too many Earth Observation Days per year.
Okay.
Because day suggests there's going to be one.
So what you're saying is that every day is GIS Day, but every day shouldn't be Earth Observation Day officially. Just pick one. And then
not every day is officially GIS Day. There's only one.
That's true.
But there is, unless America View shifted from being in the spring to being in the fall, as far as I know, it's still, in the fall from an America View perspective. They're a separate organization, so maybe, whatever. But
Somebody can Google something is what you're saying?
I don't know. But Luxembourg also has their own Earth Observation Day. Yeah. So just I'm so very supportive of Earth Observation Day, but just I think they should all get together and choose one.
Or at the very least, no more than two. Like every 6 months you could do one, but that's the most.
Like Earth Day. So you're coming up. Here's a global day that we're going to observe Earth observation.
It just seems easier.
I was going to say, if they're going to rename it, maybe I like this No Child Left Inside Day, NCLI. They're saying encourage students to go outside and research earth science in the field like a professional geoscientist. You can do so many hands-on things. You can do a lot of citizen science. You can just have students, go outside and observe. I do that with students where I have them observe for 5-10 minutes. It used to be 20 and that felt like too long, but they really enjoy it.
I have no comment. No child left inside. I get why they did it, but for our listeners that aren't necessarily clued into the United States, there was a grand experiment that, in my opinion, failed terribly. But a grand experiment. It started in 2000s, early 2000, might have been 2000.
It hasn't finished,
huh?
It's still going on.
It's still going on, but I'm saying it's a grand experiment that I think has been a failure, but it started in early 2000s, something. It might have been 2000, but it's called No Child Left Behind, which is a wonderful term, how it actualized itself. Certainly a political debate, but they're doing a pun off of that. Again, if you're not in the United States, you may not realize that, but
really, I was just pointing to you to do the next day.
I know, but I wanted to point that out. That's okay. I have mixed emotions. I like the concept, but it ties itself to something.
I do want to say
particular contention.
I do want to say, going off of that, from what Frank said, I think No Child Left Inside Day should be called Field Trip Day.
Well, there we go. That's more traditional.
But the trip part creates issue.
I know.
So maybe Field Experience Day.
Field Experience Day.
Then it's too many syllables. I don't know.
It's well, No Child Left Inside Day. That's a lot of syllables too. You gotta admit.
Well, but at least it's different words.
That's true. But if you just don't want to futz with it because whatever reasons, you can just wait on Wednesday and it's National Fossil Day, which again, my inner 7-year-old, 8-year-old that never really, when you're at least when I grew up, when you were 7 or 8. You kind of picked a thing, and that was like the thing that mattered most to you. And like everybody had their thing, and some people were like, I like the sports team, and some people I like cars. And my thing was science, but it was mostly rockets. So I didn't get into fossils, but I kind of wish I had.
I mean, you actually lived in a place where you could have gone to an outcrop and found them.
Right. I mean, and in fact, a guy I went to high school with later when he was in college, he didn't major in this, I don't think, but he started collecting fossils. It just was his hobby.
And I think this is a good intersection place for geoethics to come in to talk about fossil hunting and ethics and, good citizen behavior.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I remember from his experience, sort of observing his experience, there are rules and there are guidelines and things that you should do and not do and all that sort of stuff. It's a little like geocaching in that, you have to be cognitive of private property and all that sort of stuff like that. But also, if you find something of note and it ends up into the official channels, then it can have big ramifications. So there was some little bit of tension there, at least in the United States, for some of that stuff. So it's kind of a lot more interesting even socially than a lot of people realize. So I think it's great to spend some time with that.
And also, this is, again, like the rock tumbler to amuse myself. Having been around a lot of geologists and people that come in just randomly going, I found this, is it worth money? You could also have throughout this whole week and on Fossil Day, a day that's open to the public for them to ask you those questions. Is this a fossil?
Moving on to Thursday, October 17th. To go along with the week theme of geoscience or earth science is everywhere, Thursday is geoscience for everyone. And so just a recognition that, no matter how old or young you are, no matter what your profession or interest are, there's connections. As we talk about in the podcast occasionally, none of these disciplines stand alone. They're all connected in some way or another. And so this is the day to go out and make those connections. So put out that physical geography flag and say, yes, we are geoscience.
Yeah. And this is a really good opportunity, like you said, Jesse, to go out and get involved with your community, but also to get young people interested in it through that, physical and human connection that's there. You can't unseparate the two.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing, because geologists could. They're like, who cares about the people? But we as geographers, it's about the human environment interaction. The environment is important, but for us, it's the context that the environment provides, or that the conversations around the environment that we have with ourselves. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's, some disciplines could disconnect us from the environment, but we don't want to. We're geographers.
And I don't think if anyone's celebrating Earth Science Week, they would want to, because at the end of the day, this is about making our world a better place. And that involves us and our behaviors and our knowledge. That's getting very sappy about Geoscience Week and, Earth Science Week. Oh, Geo Week's a different week than Earth Science Week. So, another week. They get a lot of weeks for geoscience and geology.
We take advantage of as many of them as we can too. So
Yeah, well, we attach ourselves to everyone's week, because again, geography can be everything.
Exactly.
Friday, October 18th is Geologic Map Day, and it's hosted by the U.S. Geological Survey, the Association of American State Geologists, the National Park Service, Geological Society of America, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, in partnership with AGI. And this special event promotes awareness of the study, use, importance of geologic mapping for education, science, business, and a variety of public policy concerns. And this is a great day to show off those geologic maps to your legislature, to talk about them with the public in different groups. And I have to say, I always say the USGS maps, the geologic maps, are some of the prettiest I've seen. I have gone places where I've seen people take those free maps and they've turned them into stickers and are selling them for like $7. It's just, they just look nice. They're a good way to promote mapping and geography, because people look at that map and they might not know what everything is, but they do know, oh, that's just a good looking map.
So yeah, I mean, maps, awesome stuff. Go do it. Including on Saturday, October 19th, where we can talk about International Archaeology Day. And this isn't specifically for Earth Science Week. So unlike the Earth Observation Day that's part of Earth Science Week, this one is actually an AIA structured and SAA supported, and all the different archaeological associations in the US and around the world kind of support this. And basically, depending on where you are, your state probably has either a weekend or a week, or some states, I think even down here in South Carolina, it might be a whole month, that's kind of used to recognize the importance of archaeology and understanding how material culture helps us understand who we were, and of course, even today, who we are. So that's a great day to go out, have those conversations, take part in a dig, listen to a podcast on archaeology or things like that. And, just recognize the fact that we as archaeologists, and that's kind of my connection to physical geography. I started out as anthropology student with a focus on archaeology. And then whenever I went to grad school, it was really about the GIS area. But once I was there, I'm like, oh yeah, this physical geography stuff is just what we did, because we had to understand the soils. We had to understand the hydrology and deposition and those type of things to deal with the sites that we were excavating. So it was like, oh, okay. So it is, very much tied into that earth science that we have to go through to get to those cultural materials a lot of time. So yeah, check that out.
And again, I think this is another good day to bring in the idea of the public in geography and ethics. If you're on a public forum for Earth observation, a lot of times there are two discussions that come out from the public, and they'll be like, I think I found aliens, and I think I found a treasure trove. And so, it's just because of the wide availability of, LiDAR and of imagery, you are getting the public involved, which is great. but it's also a good time to educate people about things because, again, with archaeology, you see a lot of people going, I've discovered this great discovery. And, the term I've heard for the UK would be a nighthawk, someone that goes in at night to a dig. But it's
We'll just call them looters.
looters. Okay. Yeah. It's a good time to talk.
We don't give them a nice name.
Yeah.
They are people who are destroying something for their own, enjoyment. And I mean, archaeology is a destructive science. It is, as soon as you do archaeology, you are destroying the thing that you are studying. Now, the difference is that archaeologists spend time to record the thing that, as they're destroying it, whereas those folks who are just going in to loot just destroy it. And there's no way for us to understand what was going on there once the context has been destroyed. So, no, don't give them a nice name.
It belongs in a museum. Trademark.
Not always. It's not always about.
I wanted to quote Indiana Jones. I just really did.
Okay, but yeah, it's yeah. But yeah, go ahead. So that's the last day of Earth Science Week is going to be the 19th.
Dig it? Okay.
But that's true for any of those days. So we encourage you to go out, check out what's going on for Earth Science Week in your area, and of course, if you are in the position to host your own events.
And, you should record them, make a podcast, put it up there. Make it for everybody else too.
Yeah.
That's just my editorial comment on that.
Are you going to make a video podcast for Earth Science Week?
I am not, because I'm going to forget
threatening
Earth Science Week when it's Earth Science
Okay.
Week. I've met me. However, I'm pretty positive that my colleague in the geography department at our institution will make sure that I do not, and in fact, have something planned that I have to do on that week.
The colleague sitting across from you currently?
Colleague sitting across from me currently.
Yeah, I put stuff up in my open source repository for everyone to access these activities. But on campus, we have a lot of access to our geoscience department and to our NASA Education Center, and they have a lot of activities that they plan during Earth Science Week.
NASA's officially kind of connected to you guys in some way?
We have a
NASA Center in Fairmont. So
yeah. But it's on the other side of town. I mean, come on.
That's
a whole 10-minute drive away.
They're connected. They're in the building on campus. A lot of times the NASA's big and the university name Fairmont's smaller, but they are equally at both. Lots of cool stuff, robotics and earth science. Yeah, I was going to add to the resources here, Jesse. You're right that a lot of states do have a NASA Education Center, and you can go there and you can check out equipment and different things that you can do with students and with professionals related to Earth Science Week. They got a lot of neat gadgets.
Yeah, especially for students. The thing that I just forget the name of, every year they have awards that they give out, and this is somewhat for high school, but definitely for college students. They can get money to do research, to do NASA related research. And it doesn't have to be something explicitly space related. It just has to be something that NASA looks at. And as we've talked about today, NASA is involved in, everything, understanding our planet as well as other places outside of our atmosphere. So there's a lot of opportunities there for earth science, for geography, for just go down the list to be able to get some of that NASA funding. And I was hoping somebody would remember the name of it before. No,
sorry.
Space grants. There we go. Space grants. They're called space grants. So go over to spacegrant.org, or better yet, do a search for your state and space grant, because they're awarded in everything by state. So if you're a student, money. And of course, student money, if you are thinking about this year, don't forget that in May of 2025, the next round of USGIF scholarships will be due as well. So start thinking about that now.
Also very broad,
And that's it for our topic. No real events this week, since our whole episode was about an event. And so if you'd like us to add your event to the podcast, send us an email to podcast@veryspatial.com. Of course, if you'd like to contact us individually, you can reach Sue at veryspatial.com.
I'm Barb at VerySpatial.com.
I'm Frank at VerySpatial.com. And I'm No Joe Parr, if you want to do other social media things.
I'm available at Kinda Spatial. And of course, you can find all of our contact information over at veryspatial.com/contact.
As always,
We're the folks from Very Spatial.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.